This is The Download from Sounds Profitable, your daily source for the essential news in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. Here's what you need to know for today, Thursday, August 7th. For the top story, from social proof to parasocial proof, how podcasts provide the scaffolding for social campaigns. When looking at data from the recent Driving to Action report, which demonstrates how podcast primes, that's respondents to the advertising landscape who consume podcasts daily or near daily, Tom Webster cautions against treating people as monoliths. Podcast primes love podcasts, sure, but it's not the only ad-supported medium they consume every day. He then notes Instagram consistently scores pretty high with podcast primes when considering actions taken due to an ad, for example, screenshotting an offer or writing down a promo code. Instagram and podcasting act as two different touch points. The former, largely, is interacted with in sessions measured in seconds or single-digit minutes, while the latter is more of a lean-in medium, where consumers are dedicating half an hour to over an hour per session. While ads on social media are generally considered less trustworthy than ads on podcasts, a podcast ad can effectively vouch for a brand the listener heard about first in passing on Instagram. Podcast ads stand on their own 2 feet. You can see any and every study on soundsprofitable.com/research for examples of this, but podcasting's parasocial power makes them an excellent addition to a social media marketing campaign. Next up, Audioboom doubles video revenue in the first half of 2025 as more than 60% of creators produce video podcasts. Audioboom's Q2 report finds video revenue has doubled since the start of the year, with 13% of its overall business coming from video. Across both Audioboom and the recently acquired Adalicious network, video podcast episodes received 22 million views in the first half of the year, making up 20% of the overall podcast consumption for both companies. For our final top story, the podcast industry reacts to Amazon instituting mass layoffs at Wondery. In light of Wondery streamlining operations to be exclusively a company for personality-driven podcasts, while narrative-driven productions are moved over to Audible, online conversation has turned to the future of audio podcasting. The Wondery restructuring is reportedly in part motivated by video podcasting's popularity, blurring the line between content creation for YouTube and a podcast. Barrett Media's piece interviews several industry experts about the restructuring and associated layoffs, including Amplify Media CEO Stephen Goldstein, Thrum founder Lindsey Graham, and Sounds Profitable's own Tom Webster. When it comes to the future of the industry, Webster points to a few years ago when Amazon laid off several Zappos employees after acquiring the shoemaking brand. Quote, "I believe the future of shoes, however, remains bright." End quote. Before I get into the quick hits, I want to quickly draw some special attention to a new episode of the Sound Off podcast, in which host Matt Kundle interviews former Signal Hill Insights president Jeff Fiedler about moving towards retirement. They talk about his work in the audio world since the 1980s and where things are going in the near future. As for the rest of the news, Triton Digital has appointed Sharon Taylor as their new chief revenue officer. Lemonada Media is launching a new interview podcast with the Dan Butner podcast. Joe Mandis over at Media Post has a new article discussing Edison Research and Nielsen's new collaborative effort titled Nielsen Podcast Fusion, powered by Edison Research. Brace yourselves for a mixture of the 90s and the 2020s, both at the same time here. The Guardian covers the latest episode of South Park and podcasting's role in the episode, during which the show lampoons right-wing podcast celebrities, including the payoff to their continuation of a Twitter beef with Charlie Kirk. OSHA has a new version of their Podcast Search Optimization Control Panel, PSO, their tool for managing PSO and visibility in searches on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The new version of the tool boasts full compatibility with all hosting platforms. Speaking of Apple Podcasts, by the way, Apple Podcasts has published a best of so far 2025 list of 10 podcasts, including Multitude's This Guy Sucked, Spotify's Good Hang with Amy Poehler, and ABC 2020's Bad Rap, The Case Against Diddy. And Trill Magazine has a new piece covering a general overview of podcasting's history and the current state of the industry now that podcasting has gained mainstream popularity. Be sure to check out the links to every article I've talked about by going to the link in your podcast listening app, or you can go to soundsprofitable.com and mouse over to the downloads section. You could also subscribe to the newsletter while you're there. The download is written and produced by Tom Webster, myself, and Brian Barletta. For Sounds Profitable, I'm Gavin Gaddis, and I'll see you tomorrow morning for the download recap.